So in the case of the individual stencils for the project that I just presented to you, this is how I actually did the individual stencils themselves in pieces. So first of all, I started off, as you remember, with my drawing of the fence, which was done at 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. This is the whole overall thing now. And I'm going to be zeroing in on this particular part of the fence here. In particular, these two birds, and this one right here because it has a fair amount of detail to it. So now I'm going to switch to another Photoshop document that I did from this one, where I scanned the fence drawing at 600 dpi. The reason for the extreme high resolution was so that I could pull the bird out itself and still be able to use it. Okay, I'm going to go around just that bird. Now if you'll notice, the drawing itself shows that the bird is in a patch that's 3 foot by 3 foot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do File, New, and create a new Photoshop document. Really slow tonight. And I'm going to change my pixels to inches. And as we know, 3 foot is 36 inches by 36 inches. However, I don't want the resolution to remain 100 or 600 dpi. I'm going to change it to 150. And the reason for that is because I want to, when I bring the resolution of that up, I'm going to do Edit and paste that bird in there. You'll notice how much smaller he is. It's because I'm going to be able to hold on to that detail without letting him get all pixelated. I'm going to do Edit, Transform, and do Scale. And I'm going to hold down my Alt key so that I can open up the bird from the center into the document window itself, like so. Now you can see the detail has held pretty well. Now I want it to be nice and dark. You can see where we ended up with a tape line across the image right here. What I want to try to do is I want to try to brighten that up as much as I can. So I'm going to do Adjustment, Brightness, Contrast. I'm going to bring the brightness up, but I'm also going to bring up the contrast as well. I'll bring that down just a little bit. I want to try to get it as dark as I possibly can to try to get rid of those tape lines. Now I'm going to do another thing called Select Color Range. I'm going to click on the bird or outside the bird itself. You'll notice that you can see the bird pretty well now. And I've got marching ants going all around the bird itself. What I want to do at this point, though, is I want to do Select Inverse so that I'm going to be coloring in the bird himself. So I'm going to choose my color picker, set my color to black, which is 6 zeros. And then using my paintbrush tool, and with it set fairly large, I'm going to go back and forth over the whole image. Now you'll see it's going to darken the background a little bit too. And it's going to take a little while to do this because it's such a big image. That's 3 feet by 3 feet. See it beginning to go across the bird? It goes really, really slow. It's going to take a little while. But when I'm done, the bird will be fairly dark, and I still may have to go in and correct a few things where the tape was on the bird. And then what I will do is I'll go back in and I'll do Select Inverse after I've cleaned that up a little bit, and I will blast out the background completely. Now off to the side here, I have another file, and you'll see that I have a piece of copier paper which is drawn out to be exactly the same size, 8.5 by 11, as this document is here. So an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper is going to show up like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper would be on a 3 by 3 foot square. So I'm going to drag that file in and drop it. There's my piece of copier paper, and that's the size of a piece of copier paper would actually be on that 3x3 square. So then I can go back in and I can use my guides. I can say, for instance, I'm going to move across this all the way across so that I get guides that would correspond to every place that I'm going to need to put a piece of paper in order to create a copy to create the stencil from. And then the same thing top to bottom. So I'm going to go down from the top here, drag down a guide there, and another one here, the guide, and probably one more. And it looks like I'll probably have a string of other ones that will correspond to being across the bottom. So I may have an overlap. Whatever this number is, I'll have an overlap because I'll want to create one that's down here that will overlap with that one. I'll show you the diagram here in just a few minutes. So now that I have the copier paper areas all cordoned off, I can shut this off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my marquee tool to go around just this corner because I want to make a copy of this, and that will be my first copy. You'll notice I don't have to do one for over here or over here. Looks like I'm probably going to have to do one in other corresponding areas, but these two areas don't have any parts of the bird. So I'm going to do edit, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on the bird layer itself, and do edit, copy. Now I'm going to create another folder, or a new document, new, and this one is going to be created as PDFs because those print easier. So now I'm waiting for my other document to open. This one is going to be in inches. As you can see, it's almost correct. I want to make it 8.5 by 11 to correspond to a piece of paper. And I'm going to create that. I've copied this, and now I'm going to do edit and paste. And there's my first stencil. Okay? So now I'm going to say File and Save As. And I'm going to save it to the desktop inside of the document that I have open for this, which is called Fence Drawings. It's right there. And inside Fence Drawing, I have the individual stencils, and I have a folder for it created already right here. And I'm going to save it as a PDF. Go. Yeah, right there. There's the diagram that I'll show you in just a minute. And we're going to call this one 5-1 because it's stencil number 5 and it's the first of the PDFs. I'll do save. Okay, and then here in a moment I will show you the inside of the folder once the PDFs have been saved with all the PDFs that correspond to the bird. I'm going to pause this for just a second. Now, inside of the folder itself are all of the PDFs that correspond to the bird, 5.1 through 5.11. They correspond to this overall diagram that I made for myself, which looks like this. And as you can see, there's 1, 2, and all the way down to here, number 11. This is a fairly large stencil. And we'll take a look at that here in just a minute. I will take you down to the garage, and I'll have the stencil stretched out on top of the work surface down there, and you can see just how big it is. And then we'll take a look at this at the end of it actually stenciled onto the fence and how all of the stencils look when positioned on the fence at the end. Okay. So I've got it all laid out here. I think you can probably see just how large that this stencil is laid out here on my work surface here in the garage. I think between the two camera views I can probably get most of it in. One's going to be depicting the feet end, and the upper camera will probably be taking the top end of the wings. This one's already been used. As you can see, it's been sprayed around the outside. But you can see that the overall stenciled part of this is approximately 30 inches wide by just about 36 inches deep. So you can tell that's a big stencil. It's composed of 3 different
sheets of poster board, and the stencils were applied to that and then cut out with an X-Acto knife. Now this one has the unique distinction of having what's known in stencil parlance known as an island. This was taped in from the edges when we put it up on the fence, and then we used push pins to push it in and hold it in place. Then the tape was removed and then we sprayed around everything. But you can see that it's a separate piece all by itself, and without it you don't end up with the detail of the individual feet and the cross claws. But anyway, here in a moment I will be showing you how this looked in an individual detail on the fence. First, however, we're going to be looking at the stencil up on the fence, of the last 4 being sprayed on, and so the stencils are still up just after they were sprayed on. The overall pattern of how the birds actually went on the fence is slightly different than the way that the original drawing showed them, and I think it turned out better because it looks kind of like a sequence of stills from an animation. So the first one is the shot of the stencil still up on the fence. The next one will be the individual detail of this bird here, so that should be what you're looking at now. And then this last image that you're looking at should be the overall fence completed with all of the birds on it. Things look a little obscured along the bottom right now because we have a bed of zinnias growing down there, but in the fall, once the zinnias are down, or in the winter rather, when there's snow on the ground, you'll be able to see all of the birds splayed out across the fence. Okay? All for now. I will see you guys in the next video.